Greetings from the Philippines to the world. It's 5:09 here in Manila and we are on eaglenewslive.com. I am Cesar Vallejos. Before we start Open for Business, we would like to greet all members of the Church of Christ around the world for the celebration of the 104th anniversary in the Philippines and 50 years of its foreign mission. Mabuhay ang Iglesia ni Cristo, and we give our special greetings to the Executive Minister of the Church of Christ, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Happy anniversary po. And we are open for business. Join me discover the latest news and information in business around the world. Stay ahead of the curve from vision to action. The peso is 53.35 against the dollar, and at the closing of trade yesterday, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index was up by 0.46% or 35.53, which closed at 7,701.38 points. A bright economic environment attracts businessmen to invest more in the country. However, corruption and red tape in the government stifle business growth and impact negatively on our competitiveness. We have a bright economic outlook, but we also have problematic issues that affect doing business in the Philippines. Inefficient government bureaucracy, inadequate supply of infrastructure, and corruption. According to the Doing Business report of World Bank, the Philippines still performs below par in terms of its efforts to ease processes for doing business, and our competitiveness rank went down from 99th place to 113th in 2018. Entrepreneurs still consider starting a business, getting construction permits, or getting credit to start a business a difficult, tedious process. Cumbersome procedures demoralize local and foreign investors as we hear them complain about how slow and efficient the services are when they secure permits, licenses, and clearances. We heard the President in the State of the Nation address last Monday directing concerned agencies to simplify the processes and to eradicate red tape-related issues. He said that Filipinos deserve a customer-friendly, effective, efficient, responsive government because the Filipinos deserve nothing less. So what is the government doing to address these issues? With me later is one of the best persons in government to answer this, as she heads the Competitiveness and Ease of Doing Business Group at the Department of Trade and Industry, Assistant Secretary Jean Pacheco. But before we start the conversation, here are this week's headlines in business. The Philippine economy is strong but needs tough measures against inflation. RFM consolidates operations. South Korea is top source of tourists, and online payment adoption is still low among small firms. And for the stories, the Philippine economy is expected to continue growing strongly this year and over the medium term, but faces rising near-term risks, especially from rising domestic prices and uncertainties in the external environment, the International Monetary Fund warned yesterday. To address this, the 189-nation multilateral agency urged the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to take decisive action against inflation, which, at 5.2% in June, was the fastest pace of price increases in at least 5 years and was expected to peak by the fourth quarter. This would require further tightening of monetary policy to anchor inflation expectations, conditional on domestic and external developments. RFM Corporation, the food and beverage firm led by the Concepcion Group, said that it is merging 3 of its units into the company as it tries to achieve economies of scale. The company said in its disclosure that it is merging Cabuyao Logistics Industrial Corporation, Interbake Commissary Corporation, and Invest Asia Corporation with RFM as the surviving entity. The company said that the merger will be subject to the approval of RFM's special stockholders meeting called for the purpose scheduled on September 7, 2018. South Korea continued to be the top source of tourists for the Philippines, sending 815,683 of its citizens from January to June 2018. This developed as visitor arrivals in the first half of 2018 reached an all-time high of some 3.71 million, a 10.4% increase from the same period last year, according to the Department of Tourism. Beijing has had lifted a travel ban to the Philippines after President Duterte's visit in 2016. It also promised to send 1 million tourists to the Philippines every year. In the third spot was United States, followed by Japan and Australia. Only a tenth of small businesses use online payments for their operations, as additional costs and safety concerns prevent them from embracing the platform. A recent survey funded by the United States Agency for International Development showed that only 1 in 10 micro and small enterprises are using e-payments. This is a far cry compared to the over 93% usage rate among medium and large corporations and 90% for state-run firms. While there is substantial awareness among the small players, only 10% of micro firms reported to using online payment platforms over the past years. Businesses, especially small and micro, primarily transact with traditional instruments. When Open for Business gets back, let's have the conversation with the Department of Trade and Industry Assistant Secretary Jean Pacheco. Wait for it. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, Ms. Jean Pacheco. Thank you for coming to Asec.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to greet happy anniversary, 104th anniversary to the Iglesia Ni Cristo family, especially with Executive Minister Manalo. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Caesar.
Thank you, Asec. Thank you. So our topic, Asec, is very critical in the sense that, of course, we heard the president at the SONA when I reported earlier. He had this top of mind awareness. I think the first few minutes he mentioned about ease of doing business. What was your? Did you, as members of government, you briefed him on what on that he should be? It should be ease of doing business.
Yes.
That would be on top of his priorities.
Yes. Thank you very much. Caesar, when we heard the president in early part of the speech, he already mentioned the Ease of Doing Business Act. We realized right away that this particular law is really top of mind in terms of the president's priority. In May 28, it was just very recent that the law was passed, when I remember very clearly that when the president passed it last May, he immediately ordered the members of his cabinet to immediately implement the provisions of the law, even without the implementing rules and regulations. So he again repeated it with his statement in the SONA, where he was very clear. In no uncertain terms did the president say that all agencies of government must faithfully, he said, he used the word,
Yes.
must faithfully implement the law. And as you know, the law, which is Republic Act 11032, which is the short for the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act. The bureau that I'm heading right now, which is the DTI Competitiveness Bureau, serves as the temporary secretariat of the Anti-Red Tape Authority. So,
Ma'am, going back as Asec to competitiveness, because we always hear this competitiveness. There was a report from the World Bank that our competitiveness rank went down from 99th
That's
to
right.
113th.
Yes.
So, is it really the World Bank, or are there other reports that measure competitiveness?
Yes.
Okay.
The DTI Competitiveness Bureau actually monitors about 13 of these competitiveness reports. But really the focus of the interventions mostly that you have actually referred to, which is the Doing Business report, which is it has 10 indicators, and that is really the focus that we have. Agencies of government, we organized, there was an executive order before, it's called the AO 38, that comprises all of the agencies of government that issue licenses relative to business licenses. And all we do is really to make sure that reforms are met to not only just increase the ranking, but really improve, make doing business in the Philippines easier.
Which is very striking, Asec, and also shocking, because when I was reading some of the data, imagine in places like Singapore or Hong Kong, it will only take you 3 steps and about 3 days to register a business. In the Philippines, I heard, about 28 or longer.
That's right.
And then there are about 16 steps.
That's correct.
So I think, how would you now describe this new law, and how will this new law impact on those procedures and processes?
Yeah. So you're right. If you make reference to the previous report where the Philippines went down in ranking from 99 to 113, the report really says that it takes us about 16 steps and 28 days just to start a business.
Okay.
Because when you start a business, you go from either the Securities and Exchange Commission,
Okay.
if you are a corporation or a partnership, in the Department of Trade and Industry, and then you have to go through the Bureau of Internal Revenue, then you go through to the local government and all the social agencies. So all of that, we need to reform that.
Okay.
And we have been given instructions by our secretary to really go for the best, which is number one. And if you'll notice, number one is really New Zealand.
Yes.
Yes, and it will only take
How
you less than a day.
Less than a
yes,
day.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
wow.
yes. And that is where we're going. I am pleased to report that that now what we have been, the instruction by our DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez is for us to move towards a unified form, so that all applicants who would like to apply for a business permit would only fill up just one form, and they don't have to fill up each form in each agency. So that is what we're working on. We have embarked on what we call Project One. So we have one form, one portal, and hopefully one business number. So all of that, in other words, what we'd like to promote is really online, which is in line again with what is in the law.
So when you say online, it's really automated now.
It
So
is
they
automated.
have to download from the website.
That's correct. Or
I
not
see.
even download. It's maybe to apply online, and then you
Okay.
upload all the necessary
Okay.
forms, and
Okay.
then let technology.
Work for you.
Yes, yes.
So, given this, do you also have a target? Like, for example, if we're 113th before, and if the existing report was 16 procedures or more and
Yes.
28 days, how will you now streamline it to make it shorter? How many steps and how many days?
Okay. I'd like to share that we have an ultimate target in the
Okay.
competitiveness ranking, which is to reach top 20%. So in doing that, we really need to do transformative changes as opposed to incremental. So as I said, at the very least, if we go with 3 days, from 28 days, we go with 3 days.
Okay.
That is a very ambitious goal, as we say. But of course, as I said, what we want to see is we go where New Zealand is, right? One day, and that's what government really is working towards now. So and as I said, the way to go is really to promote automation. I'd like to perhaps tell you now that in one provision in the EODB Act is really to come up with a central business portal.
Okay.
So under the central business portal is that all applications should go into one business portal, so that when an entrepreneur applies for a permit, then we go to that central business portal. We also have a Philippine Business Data Bank. By the way, all of these provisions should be carried out by our Department of Information and Communication Technology, which has been assigned under the law as the department responsible for managing and implementing and developing the system. So what we'd like to see...
Sorry, Asec. So it's not only DTI who is involved
Yes.
in this ease of doing business.
Yes.
What are the other government agencies? You already mentioned
the ICT.
Okay,
So the
what
ICT
else?
is really have a very important job.
Okay.
The next agency that is important here, of course, is the Department of Interior and Local Government. Because
Okay.
if you look at the provisions of the law, you'll see there that there are specific provisions relative to local government units. So talagang the local government units form a big part, no, in making sure that they make doing business easier for the
Correct.
clients.
That's
But
right.
of course, I'd like to give a special shout out here, because one of our partners here, even now as we are starting to prepare the implementing rules, is the Civil Service Commission. So
What's the role?
the Civil Service, as you know, in the Anti-Red Tape Act of 1985, it was really the Civil Service Commission who was really managing the anti-red tape initiatives of government. This law now, because of ease of doing business, the function now of the Civil Service Commission has been strengthened even more because of now, under the law, they're supposed to set up offices in all of the regions for anti-red tape, to implement the Anti-Red Tape Act. Why is the Civil Service Commission important? Because really, if you have a complaint against a government official who has violated, a government employee or an official who has violated provisions of the Act, you file that complaint with the Anti-Red Tape Authority, but in the end, it is the Civil Service Commission who will make the ruling.
I see.
So, in other words, we believe that as the law is now strengthened, we would see most of our citizens who would be empowered to complain. I can tell you about the violations later on because you'll see, and maybe the viewers can also know exactly what the law can do for them as citizens.
It is exactly what we would like to expect. So how will this new law impact on businesses, on entrepreneurs, on chief executive officers, and potential citizens who would want to venture into business? All this will be answered and will be discussed by Assistant Secretary Jean Pacheco when Open for Business comes back. Stick with us. We're back here in Open for Business, and we're still live here at eaglenewslive.com. Still with me is Assistant Secretary of DTI, Ms. Jean Pacheco. Asec, you mentioned about the violations of government officers or officials or employees. So what are these violations of these employees, and what will be the penalties? And definitely a lot of us citizens and some people who go to the government agencies would sometimes have a lot of complaints, and there is nothing that we can do sometimes because there's a lot of people in queuing, and all we had to do is just shut up or sometimes just walk away. So will this now be addressed by the Ease of Doing Business law?
Yes,
Okay.
Caesar. Perhaps maybe I'd start with the violations.
Okay.
Because one of the main aspects of the law is that it has become stricter.
Okay.
Rather, in the former in the Anti-Red Tape Act of 2007,
Okay.
The penalties have been is now stiffer.
Okay.
So government, in fact, has made it more serious.
Okay.
So I counted about 8. There are actually 8 violations that a government of employee or an official can be held liable.
So these are the things that we should look forward to. So when we go to a specific government agency now, like I will go to, like, say the city government, or in Quezon City, so I'll go to the Quezon City Municipal Hall.
That's correct.
So what are the samples of the violations?
Okay, if you refuse to accept an the first one is refusal to accept application or request with complete requirements being submitted by an applicant. So, for example, the process now has been changed in a way that when a person makes an application, the receiving government employee must make sure that all are complete.
Okay.
Okay, all requirements are complete.
Okay.
Under the rules, under the law, it is now, all government agencies are now required to make sure that there is a checklist of
Okay.
all of the requirements, so that
Okay.
they will no longer ask you to come up with additional requirements if it is not in the checklist. So that's
Oh,
important.
I see.
We are calling, in fact, on all government agencies to make sure that they come out with a comprehensive checklist, because that is the one that will be the basis of all of the sanctions.
Yes.
Unti po, yung mga bisita namin sa mga bahay namin, yung mga kaibigan, yung kapitbahay, ay unti-unting talagang nagugustuhan nila hanggang sa iniimbita po kami sapagkat yung mga halaman nila o yung binibili nila
Not accept because you lack the requirements.
Yes. So that's one. And
So meaning the violation is they are liable.
if they do not accept, then it's already complete.
Okay.
Okay. So if
Okay.
you know that it's uncomplete, so you should insist. My submission is complete. Why are you not accepting? They have to
Okay.
explain to you.
Okay.
In writing. So that it has to be with cause.
Okay.
The only time that they will not accept, they should explain why they are not accepting your application.
Okay.
The next one is, as I've mentioned earlier, under the new law, we're supposed to come up with a list of additional requirements.
Okay.
If you imposition of additional requirements, we hear of stories, right, that they don't want to act on it because they need to. Oh, you need this, you need that. Oh,
Okay.
then you see, they kind of make things difficult
Yes.
when it's not really necessary.
yung manipis, ay pwede ho nating itanim sa mga lupa para yun naman ay mapaparami po natin yung halaman. Kaya hindi ho tayo pumapatay ng halaman, kundi pinaparami ho natin sapagkat nagagawa nating water bonds.
Required under if you
Okay.
look for an application. So sometimes some government employees would ask for those that are necessary. So
Okay.
we have had many anecdotal reports on that.
Okay.
So
What
that's
else?
one.
What else? Asec?
If you ask for additional cost, which is again not in your citizens charter.
Okay.
So, very clear.
So that is very critical
very
because sometimes you know what, before you go to the government agency,
Yes.
you now have an inkling or you
Yes.
have an idea how
How
much
much? Yeah.
you're going to pay.
Yes. And in the citizens charter, you should see there right in front that this is how much you'll pay.
Okay.
But if suddenly again the government person would say no, you need to add more and more, that again is a ground.
Okay, that's a ground.
Okay. All notices must, if you disapprove an application, you need to do it written. So
Okay.
if it's not written,
At sa isang ganito po, makakagawa na ho tayo ng halos 5 hanggang 10 ganito po na gagawin nating water bonsai. Kaya napakatipid po niya sa tubig at ang kagandahan po, hindi po siya maaring maitlugan ng lamok.
because in the law, and I have failed to mention this, one of the key provisions of the law is that it says standards. We have
Okay.
service level agreements. Government has now service level agreements with the public. For simple transactions, not more than 3 days. For complex transactions, not more than 7 days. And for highly technical transactions, no longer than 20 days. So if the government person fails to give you your licenses in those specific times, then they are again liable.
Who will now flag them, or who tells them that they are not complying? Is there, would the person or the
Yeah.
applicant will tell him, now it's my
Yes.
29th day,
Yes.
and you haven't given me back my or
Yes.
gave me my approval?
Yes, although in your example, that would already constitute another provision because under the law, for example, the transaction is simple. So you have 3 days. And then they will say, no, I need an extension. So the law provides for an additional 3 days.
I
So the
see.
29 days, assuming assuming that it's a simple transaction, you would already get an automatic approval.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's
So
good.
yes. So all you need to do is to show your official receipt and your acknowledged receipt,
And that is already
that would be sufficient proof
approved.
that it's so
I
so
see.
you now have your automatic approval, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can certainly make a complaint
I see.
You
That's
complain,
good.
yes, and you would know because they should have a stamp, and yeah, that would you could easily.
You know,
do
the
that.
service level agreement is very critical because in the corporate world, we call also that the TAT, or the turn
the
around time.
That's right.
So we are now expected to, we have three. But you mentioned the 3 days and 7 days. Can you repeat that,
Okay.
Asec? 3 days? for-
Okay, it's 3 days for simple transactions.
Okay.
7 days for complex transactions.
Okay.
And 20 days for highly technical
I
transactions.
see. Asec, we are running out of time. What are the other violations? Can you make it fast so
Okay,
that
yeah.
our
So if you you don't give official receipt, and the next one is they don't service you during lunch break.
okay, wow,
Yes,
that's critical.
Yes. And the most important one is they're fixers.
I see.
So I in the interest of time, I think the best way is to really tell everybody what the offense would be. It's a strike 2 policy for government.
Strike 2.
Only
No
strike
strike 3.
No strike 3 because strike
Okay.
2 is enough. The first one is 6-month suspension. It's an administrative liability. But the worst, the stringent one is when you do a second offense. It is both an administrative offense and a criminal offense, meaning to say, aside from the fact that you will be disqualified from public office and forfeiture of retirement benefits, you will be imprisoned from 1 to 6 years.
Para po matakpan po yung styrofoam. Magandang design. Pag diniligan ho natin yan, para na tayo nagdilig mismo sa nasa paso, sapagkat tumutuloy na lang po yung tubig.
In nature.
Oh yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, compared to the anti-red tape.
Yes, because it was purely administrative. Now it is a criminal liability.
Okay. Now, Asec, I think you have. There's a lot of things that we need to inform and educate. The entrepreneurs about these things, especially the ease of doing business law that was already signed. It's already implemented. I just have to go back to your earlier statement that of course your target is to be like the number 1 like New Zealand, but realistically, Asec, how long do we have to wait for it to happen? Realistically, are you looking at 2 years, 3 years?
The law provides that there will be a transition from manual to automation within 3 years.
I see.
So at the very least, we are really setting our sights that on the 3rd year we would already be seeing a one government that is operating by automation.
Okay, that's great, and we expect Assistant Secretary of DTI Jean Pacheco to always update us here at Open for Business on the many developments of the ease of doing business and how this law will be able to help our citizens, especially the businessmen and the entrepreneurs who would want now to invest in their own businesses, because that's another topic which I hope we can invite you again, how this law will also help the small and medium enterprises, because of course 99% of our businesses
Are micro and small. That's
micro
right.
and small.
Yes.
Any last words, Asec Pacheco?
Thank you very much, Cesar, and again, happy anniversary to everybody. This law is really meant to improve the way government is performing. We'd like to see a more efficient, a more effective, a faster, a government that has malasakit, as we say it, and as the President says it. So thank you very much on behalf of the Department of Trade and Industry.
Open for Business will be back here on EagleNewsLive.com. Stick with us. We're back here on Open for Business and EagleNewsLive.com. In our business term of the week, you take a refresher of business terms to make you updated, more informed, and ready to make smarter business decisions. This week's term is red. Red is a business expression relating to a negative balance on a company's financial statements. A related term, red ink, describes the same meaning, a financial loss. The phrase "in the red" is used widely to refer to companies that have not been profitable within their last accounting period. This term is derived from the color of ink used by accountants to enter a negative figure on a company's financial statements. Red as a color is often used in business to indicate that something unwanted is happening. The color is also used in this context outside of a firm's balance sheet. For example, regulations governing businesses are often referred to as red tape. Investors may also refer to a security position losing money as being in the red. Today, most financial and operational ledgers are maintained electronically. It is not uncommon for software to utilize red and black coloring to highlight results. Red ink is synonymous with the business expressions bleeding red ink or in the red, whereas it's common to hear a healthy business describes as in the black. We end our webisode with the quote of the week. This week's quote is from Tim Cook, the Chief Executive Officer of Apple Incorporated. Life is fragile. We're not guaranteed a tomorrow, so give it everything you've got. Join us again next Saturday, 5 p.m. Philippine time for another episode of Open for Business, where we discuss business information, deliver the latest business news to keep you informed, and open for business. You're on EagleNewsLive.com. And again, happy 104th anniversary to the Church of Christ members and happy 50 years in the West. From Open for Business, this is Cesar Vallejos. Have a great day.